Ah, says I'm live. I'm live on Facebook? Hey, it's Tim Patterson, trade show guy, and this is my Monday morning coffee. And I'm trying Facebook. I'm also on, oddly enough, YouTube, but not yet. I will be on there in just a moment once I hit the button and go live. So we'll see what happens. I'm trying to make all this work. Technology, I'm just working with it and seeing what's going on. So let's see what happens here. I've got Facebook pulled up. I'm going to have YouTube pulled up in a second. And then once we'll do that, we've got everything going. I will then start the show. So let me just, we can do this. We're casual, right? We can do this. So I need to go over here and pull up a link. And there's the link. Once that's on, then I know that I can see what's happening on. It's actually Webinar Jam, which is doing it. And Webinar Jam is hooked up to YouTube. They're changing some things this month. That's why I'm experimenting with Facebook. So we'll see what happens. So I've actually got a camera there, Facebook. I've got a camera here on the laptop. And all right, well, let's see. Let's start the broadcast on the official platform. Yes, I see that. I checked the policy. We're doing this. We're doing this live. Still spreading the word on Facebook, it says. Now, I don't even know. I should be able to see this. If I hit the button here. No, that's not it. Again, I'm trying. Welcome to the program here. This is Tim Patterson, trade show guy, Monday morning coffee. We do this every Monday morning. Sometimes I have a guest, sometimes not. Now, I would have a guest, except for one thing. We had technical difficulties last week, and we had a power outage for about 8 hours on Friday with the windstorm that came through Oregon and knocked us out, so we couldn't check. And we tried on battery, that just didn't work. But then we decided the guest I was going to have, which it has to do with shipping and logistics, decided that, you know what, I'm getting a better laptop, and it'll have all the cameras and goodies that we need to do this on. So can we postpone this a week? And I thought, yeah, we can do that. So the other thing that happened last week is that I have now officially made this a podcast, an audio podcast. So you can subscribe to this in your app or whatever you want to call it. It should be up on the iTunes, wherever it lands. The feed is there. So anyway, that's kind of cool. You can go to the blog at Trade Show Guy blog, and there's a link to the top to the podcast. And I put some of the past ones in there in the feed, so those should show up as well. And let's see here. Have I gotten anything going on here? I was still trying to connect. Okay, there we go. It's weird. I'm seeing myself on 3 screens here. Facebook, YouTube, and then the replay. All right, so welcome to another Trade Show Guy Monday morning coffee. It should be fun this morning. I'm Tim Patterson, and I'm the here at the time of the place that we get in front of the camera, sometimes me, sometimes with a guest, and discuss the state of the world, trade show world, my world, or something. In any event, I do appreciate you joining me, whether it's live or whether you're watching the reposted version on Trade Show Guy blog, or whether you've managed to find your way into the audio podcast. So nonetheless, I'm the owner and founder of Trade Show Guy Exhibits, which is in sale, a company that works with clients who are looking to upgrade their trade show presence, increase their trade show marketing return on investment, and make a bigger splash at the shows that they've been at. Let's see here. So, worked with clients such as Bob's Red Mill, Dave's Killer Bread, Betterment LLC, Maduri Farms, Earth, Mama Angel Baby, So Young, and many more. A lot of clients in the natural products industry. We're not limited to that. We've had a few in the others, but yeah, we're a small company. We work with clients that really want sort of the hands-on approach and the personal touch, as it were. Not that other companies don't do that, but that's really what we focus on. So, podcast. This is going to be available as a podcast shortly, later today. If you're catching this live, I really appreciate it. Ski season's about over. And I went up yesterday to Hoodoo Ski Bowl, and on the way up, I wanted something to listen to, so I grabbed the Tim Ferriss podcast that I hadn't heard yet. And the guest was Cheryl Strayed, who wrote the book Wild, which was made into a movie with Reese Witherspoon last year or the year before, I'm not sure. And I don't know what it is about this book and the author, Cheryl Strayed. I don't know much about her. But I had some sort of weird bias against her that I've been trying to figure out why. She's local in the sense that she lives in Portland, grew up there. And she went through some sort of crisis. She's like 48, 49 now, as she mentioned on the show. But several years ago, I'm going to say 10 or 15, I don't know when she hiked the trail. She hiked the Pacific Crest Trail, and that was interesting to me because my parents did the same when they retired, so this would have been the mid-'80s for them. They spent 2 summers hiking from Mexico to Canada on the Pacific Crest Trail, and to me it's the iconic thing that my parents did in their life. My dad talked about it till the day he died, which was less than a year ago. My mom still, it's a great event in their life among all the other stuff they did, but hiking the PCT was a cool thing, and I always thought I'd like to do it too. So when this book came out, I was interested. I don't know what the thing was with her. I somehow was biased against her, I'm not sure. And I'm glad I listened to this podcast with Tim Ferriss. It was recorded live at South by Southwest last month in front of an audience of about 2,000 people. And, Cheryl Strayed came across as extremely well-spoken, very articulate, very thoughtful. She talked a lot about writing, and Tim Ferriss is a writer as well. And so it was really interesting to hear some of the discussions they had around writing and what it takes to write. And they both realized they're both kind of binge writers. Cheryl's got a couple of kids who are probably early teens or almost teens right now. And she would, in younger life, she needed to be able to get away from the babies and go write. So she'd go check into a hotel for a couple of days, tell her husband, hey, I'm going to a hotel, I'm going to write. And she would just write for like 48 hours straight with very little sleep, lots of coffee, whatever. And Tim said, I do the same thing. But everybody has their own style to write, and they were like kind of talking about what doesn't work, and that's what the old writer, the old professional writer, the one with all the awards and all the great books would say. I write every day from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and my wife brings me lunch and all this stuff. And so they were kind of making fun of that, saying it doesn't work for me. Anyway, if you're interested in the book Wild or in Cheryl Strayed or Tim Ferriss and the podcast, you should go track that down. It came out just in the last few weeks, maybe a couple of weeks, that he posted that podcast. She also talked about being a writing teacher, which I thought was interesting. Was not aware of that. And some of the writing assignments that she gives to students, she shared 2 of them. Both of them I thought were great. One of them was some sort of talisman that people have. There's always a story around that. And she said talisman could be anything. It could be a favorite song when they were a kid. It could be a thing they carry around. It could be something on their keychain. Something that means something to them. What's the story behind that? And the other one that she says everybody has something to write about this is, who did you wrong, or what kind of grievance do you have? What is it that bugs you? And everybody has something that bugs them that they can get to talking about on paper. They can write about what bugs them. So I thought that was interesting. So in my notes for today's podcast, show, vlog, whatever you want to call it, I got to thinking last week about how people roll with the punches. And I thought this would be fun to talk about in relation to trade show marketing. So one of the things we learn in life, usually, some of us don't as well as others, is to roll with the punches. Maybe we do it well, maybe we don't do it so well. So what happens if we're faced with a situation that was not of our planning? In other words, if we are faced with situations that we did not anticipate after all of the planning we put into it, how do we react? And what does it take to react in a positive way instead of a negative way? So I got to thinking about this. One of my favorite things, every month in Exhibitor magazine, there's a column called Plan B. Each month, it shares a situation that some exhibitor was faced with, because of the time frame they got to deal with. They had to think fast, they had to think resourcefully. Like the exhibitor got shipped to the wrong venue, only half of it showed up, the graphics were the wrong, whatever it is. There's always an issue, and sometimes these are very stressful, sort of existential threatening, to the life of the booth or the life of the appearance at the show. Because the show's going to happen whether you're there or not. So what do you do? How do you deal with those sorts of things? So when I'm involved with the client's exhibit and the shipping, and I'm at the show, I check and double check and triple check to make sure all the crates have arrived, everything is there. Once it's all set up, then I can breathe a sigh of relief, right? So where does all that resourcefulness come from? Some people have it and some don't. How does one develop that? I think it comes from facing adversity and working your way out of it. Not that we all are MacGyver, but the more you go through a situation where you have to think on your feet and make things happen and pull from various resources, the better you get at it. Now, I was thinking about this, in the mid-'90s, late '90s, early 2000s, I was in a Toastmasters club, which is a public speaking training club. And I just happened to join a club, a local club, and there was several. But this one was inside of a State Farm insurance company, which was, they didn't exclude outside members, but they just didn't look for them either. I just ran across them and asked if I could come, and I sat in on 3 or 4 meetings, ended up on this one. But all the employees, or all the members were employees. And out of 700 people in this building, they had a pretty healthy club, 25, 30 people that showed up every week. And so I enjoyed it. It was, but I was really the only outside one in the club. And at the time I was working in radio. And during the time I was there, I lost my job. And it was, big deal, of course, but I've lost other jobs in radio, and I've always found another job in radio because that's kind of the way it was. There was a lot of jobs out there. You could always find something, even though the industry was changing and people were downsizing. But I'll tell you, the reaction of some of the people at the club, they were aghast at the thought of losing a job. They were just like, I couldn't do that. They worked there for 10, 15, 20 years. And the thought of having to look for another job was something they had never even thought about. They were lifers, and nothing's wrong with that. But the idea of having to go out and search for something new, they felt they didn't have the resources. And I got to thinking about that, and I thought, well, this happened to me a few times, and it wouldn't be the last time. And so as a result of that, I think I had a little bit of resilience about it. I thought, well, I can always find a job, and I ended up with a job in radio, a couple more, as a matter of fact, before I finally got out of the industry. But I'm not MacGyver, but I had a bit of faith in myself. So I thought I'd do a little online reading and see what other people think about what it takes to be resourceful. So here's what I came up with. Number 1, evaluate the situation. Know what the problem is. If, for instance, only half of your exhibit shows up, know exactly what the pieces are, know what is missing, find out as much information as you can about where it is. Is it in transit? Did it go to the wrong location? In other words, evaluate the situation. When faced with a situation, try and think of more than one way out of it. The example I ran across in an article was the movie The Great Escape. Steve McQueen, right? World War II drama, and they were in this prison camp in Germany, and they were trying to get out. Well, they were digging a tunnel, but they ended up digging 3 tunnels because they figured, well, the Nazis will find one of them. Let's have 3 going at any one time, so that if they find one, they might not find the other. So you want to find more than one way out of the situation. Think about more than just a single solution. Ultimately, I think one will win out and be the best. Assess what is available to you. And remember that resources aren't just objects. Resources will also include people, knowledge, money, emotions, lots of stuff. Another thing is ask for what you want. Often we're hesitant to ask for help. But frankly, asking for help does a favor to the person that you're asking, because most people feel good about helping someone in a rough situation. But if you're going to bind, figure out who you might look to help get you out of that bind, and find someone to ask. Some people are more natural at this than others, but you can always learn to ask for help. Don't apologize unnecessarily. Remember, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission. You've heard that before, no doubt. Keep an open mind. Figure out what is possible and what is impossible. This helps you figure out which direction to go. Confidence, very important. It can take you a long way. So like and appreciate what you bring to the table, what your own talents are. Know that you're competent and know that you're adequate to get the job done. Creativity can get you around the corner. Think of unusual ways to get out of or through a situation. Be proactive, very important. Don't expect something to happen. Do something. Doing something that turns out to be wrong is usually better than doing nothing. Even if you start down that path and you realize it's wrong, then you recognize that and you can make a pivot. If what you're trying turns out to be wrong, it gives you insight into what might be the right answer. Be persistent. Don't give up. Don't give up after the first stumble. Manage your time. Don't chase answers endlessly that lead nowhere and consume a lot of time. A little thinking before action usually means a more appropriate action. Communicate with others. That is so key. And the thing that I thought about this example is, they had to communicate with others, but that was the whole deal. Apollo 13, 3 astronauts out in space trying to get back home from circling the moon. They had to rely on very solid, very accurate communication with the brains and talent of NASA engineers hundreds of thousands of miles away. So communication was really crucial to solving their problem. So resourcefulness, isn't something that we're necessarily born with. Probably not. Something we learn along the way, and it can be learned. Certainly some people have the knack better than the others, but you can learn to be resourceful. So a trade show tip. I'm going to pull this from an article that I wrote earlier this year called 7 Trade Show Exhibit Must-Haves. There'll be a link in the show notes there. So the must-haves is, number 1, branding. And as I put it, branding, I stole this line. It's a great one. Branding that is clear as an angel's giggle. A visitor should know at a glance what you sell and what kind of company you are. So branding is important. A trade show exhibit must-have. Number 2, professionalism. Professionalism that is obvious. Your fully trained staff will know how to approach visitors in a friendly and engaging way and how to either answer their questions or get them to the right person. You also need a lead capture system that works for you. And that's the key. Does it work for you? If it does, then it works. If it works for somebody else but doesn't work for you, then it's probably not the right one. Number 4, interactivity. Some sort of interactivity, because it engages people, keeps them at your booth a little longer. And as we all know, a crowd draws a crowd. Number 5, you need a comprehensive trade show marketing plan. You just can't show up and set up and hope that people come by. Number 6, enough stuff. Whatever it is you have, samples, sell sheets, demos, lead sheets, business cards, whatever it is you need to hand out to people, to show to people, to let them know what you're doing. You make sure you have enough, because you hate to get there, and I've run across people that have done this. I probably have done it too. You get to the show and you're like, didn't bring enough business cards. I ran out at noon on the first day. And so, always bring more than you need. And number 7, comfortable shoes. You saw that one coming, didn't you? And today's one good thing. I thought about all the rolling with the punches. There's a movie that came to mind. It came out in the mid-'80s, starring John Cleese of Monty Python, which is called Clockwise. And I'm going to link to I'll link to a couple things. I'll link to the IMDb page on Clockwise. It's one of the funniest movies. It's about a button-down, straight up and down, narrow, like guy that runs a school in England, and everything goes wrong, and he doesn't know how to deal with it. But it's hilarious. So Clockwise, 1986. That's the one good thing this week's show. So I'm going to bid you adieu. Have a great time, and subscribe to the podcast. Find me online. TradeshowGuyBlog.com, TradeshowGuyExhibits.com, and of course you can also download a free digital copy of my book at TradeshowSuccessBook.com. You can get the Trade Show Exhibit Buyers Kit at TradeshowExhibitBuyersKit.com, and of course sign up for these webinars at TradeshowGuyWebinars.com. All right, have yourself a great week.